we're recording. So I'm gonna make another video to answer some more questions. I've been asked a few times about regrets or bad decisions I've made. The biggest regret that comes to my mind is when I was younger, I used to get paid with calves for working around the farm. Whenever I'd help my grandpa and them out, I would always get bottle calves for payment. And this was from the time I was like 12 years old and older. And one of my worst decisions I ever made, I feel, was I got a Belgian Blue Holstein Cross calf, heifer calf, as payment one year for doing chores at my grandpa's farm. And this Belgian Blue heifer calf, I raised her up. She went in with my dad's beef herd, and I had my uncle AI breeder, and I can't remember what we bred her to. It wasn't a Belgian Blue. For the life of me, I can't remember what we bred it to. We're talking 20 some years ago. All I remember is her heifer calf that she had it come out a mousy color, almost like navy. We bred her with a Charolais or something. Anyways, I had the beginning of my own beef herd back when I was in my teens. And by the time I turned 16, I had 2 heifers, or 2 cows, I should say. And then I had a couple of calves, 2 calves that come from them, and some other calves that I had gotten paid as payment for doing chores, whatever. But when I turned 16, I wanted a truck. So I sold some of my animals to buy my first truck, which was a jacked up 79 Chevy, 4-wheel drive, big off-road tires and all that. Well, as time went on, I ended up selling all of my cows to buy more vehicles and to go have fun. And once I graduated high school, I didn't have any cattle left, obviously, and I kind of pursued other dreams like being a mechanic and what have you. So when I met my wife, before I met my wife out of high school, I was a mechanic. We did a lot of partying all over the country. Spent a lot of money. It was a good experience, but it was a very expensive experience. Looking back, my biggest regret was selling those animals to buy a big fancy jacked up truck that didn't make me any money, and it didn't get me any farther ahead in life. Hindsight is always 20/20. Knowing now, if I would have known back then what I know now, I would have kept those animals, and I'd have had a really good herd started up. Come on, girls. I would have had a nice herd by the time I ever moved out of home. Go, Daddy. And I would be farther ahead today because obviously I would have had a herd started. But hindsight, like I say, is always 20/20. So my my biggest regret and probably worst decision I ever made was getting rid of those animals to buy a vehicle. And second is probably all the time I spent and money I spent partying, which, like I say, it was a life experience that I'll never forget. But it definitely made it harder to get a farm operating and up and going when you start with nothing. One of my other worst decisions I believe I ever made was when the family dairy farm was sold. I was still in my partying stage and being a mechanic, and it messed up my option to take over the family dairy farm. And now I hate to even drive by there because I can't stand the way it looks. Everything has fallen apart and what have you. So I would say that is probably my second or third mistake, biggest mistake I ever made. There again, if I wouldn't have been in that partying stage and wanted to be a mechanic, I could have taken over a farm that was already operational. But that slipped through my fingers, so can't dwell on the past as much as you want to. But anyways, that was shortly out of high school, or a year or so after. Then I met my wife, and we wanted a place. We had horses back then. We wanted a place to bring our horses to, you know, and kind of have our own land. And that's when we found this farm. Well, when we bought this, it was all rented out, except for the steep hillside up there, and obviously the woods. We just had our couple horses, and we bought. I had my Farmall 560. I bought a Heston 4500 small square baler. I bought an Owatonna, I believe it was that 250 swather, had an 8-foot head on it. And then I bought an old horse-drawn steel wheel side delivery rake. And basically we just, the flatter part of the hill there we used to cut for hay for the horses. And then we had the steeper part in pasture for them. And then it wasn't too long after we moved here, we were making hay, and one of the neighbors said, "Hey, my dad's got 2 Holstein bull calves. Are you interested in raising some calves?" So we got those 2 calves, and then the following spring I decided I wanted a couple beef cows. So my oldest cow out there and another cow I bought as heifer calves, or heifers, from my dad. So those are what my beef herd has grown from, were those 2. But when we originally bought this place, my wife was still working at the same place she was working then. That was right out of college. We bought the farm 4 months after we were married. We actually made the offer to purchase before we were married. So when we bought this, we didn't have the intentions of being really an operational farm. It was more going to be a hobby type thing. And of course, after that, my childhood memories of farming came back and made me want to farm again. So that's how this farm came to be. Well, in my decisions, which I regret from the past of getting rid of those animals that I had growing up, I could have had a pretty decent sized herd built up by the time we bought this place. But that didn't happen, so we're doing what we can with what we have. And I can tell you a lot of decisions that have not helped me over the past with this farm. And video series here, I'm trying to pass some things along that I have learned that could potentially save some of you other folks who want to get into farming or start farming some heartache, and make it a little bit easier on you to get started, and maybe not make the same mistakes that I had made in the beginning. It's a lot easier to get ahead in life if you're not making payments on anything. If you were growing up on a farm or have a little bit of property, and your parents are making the payments on everything, but yet you have the option or freedom to buy something and raise it on your parents' property, or say buy equipment and store it at your parents' property, I would try and do that before you are strapped with debt. That's one regret. I wish I would have bought a lot of things or kept a lot of things that I had back before I had a mortgage payment and a land payment and electric payment, insurance payments, everything else. So that's another little bit of advice maybe to somebody that's going to get started. I know it would have sure helped me out in the long run if somebody would have told me way back then, hey, you're going to farm someday, don't sell those animals. Live and learn, I guess. Don't sell an income. You don't sell your income for a little bit of fun. Like right now, I could use a bunch of money right now to pay off a bunch of debt, and life would be a whole lot easier. But I don't really have a whole lot that I can sell that isn't going to hurt me in the long run. I don't want to go and make any more bad decisions that I'm going to regret down the road. So with that being said, the only thing I really have that I can sell today as a liquid asset are my cows. Well, if I go and sell my cows, that greatly reduces my income next year. So I can't really go and sell my income to pay off some debt right now and then be strapped next year again. So I don't know, that's just some of the things that I have messed up on. Like I say, if you're younger, living at home, and if your parents are willing to let you raise animals there or buy equipment to store there until you start your own farm or whatever, I'd take advantage of that. Find a job somewhere where you can scrap together money to buy some equipment. Most of the equipment you see here, I have spent less than $1,000 on. A lot of it I've spent actually less than $500 on. Really, the only thing I've really spent money on over that are the tractors. The round baler I spent better money on because you don't want to be dealing with a junk round baler. I grew up with a junk round baler. Otherwise, everything else I haven't spent much money on. And a younger person, if you can get a job working for a neighbor farmer or something, you can get experience that way, plus get some money, start buying some things to better your future. That's what I would do. So that way you're better prepared for when you do venture out on your own. If you can have that stuff bought before you start to farm, or before you even buy property, you're going to be that much farther ahead. So, you know, in my beef herd, this year the first heifer calf number will be 55. So in 2004, 2005 was the first year that I had females on this farm, and I bred them that year because they were yearlings when I got them from my dad.
And my old cow in here, she is one of the two that I bought. So in 13 years or whatever, we've had 55 heifer calves, 54 technically, born on this farm. Well, over the years I've culled, I've had a couple cows die, you know, whatever. But if I would have kept those two from way back when I was 12, 13 years old, we could be looking at, you know, 155 right now. I mean, you don't really know for sure, but it's another one of those what ifs. So just kind of walk through here and look at everybody, because we are 3 weeks away from the first possible calving date. You know, it's still kind of early, but you can kind of tell, like Patch here, she's starting to get loose in the rear end. She was the first cow to calve last year, so there's a good chance she could be the first one again this year. But walking through them here, trying to find the old girl. She's right here at the very end. I don't know, she lost her switch on her tail this fall. I don't know what happened there, but I mean, she was born in 2003, so do the math on her. That's how old she is. I always say like 14 years old, whatever. She was born in 03, so she's got to be 14, 15 years old. But like I say, if you can start out now at your parents and buy some animals, so by the time you get your own property, you're already kind of rolling. A lot of people have to borrow money to buy property, and if you do not have an income history and a job history, most banks will laugh you right out the door. That's part of it. If you have an asset list, that's going to work to your advantage for borrowing money from the bank. And in order to borrow money for agriculture, they want to see a history. And if you're just starting out, most banks will not finance you anything for agriculture unless you have an off-the-farm job, because that's what they're using for your collateral or your guarantee that you're going to pay back the loan. So you almost have to have an off-the-farm job. But if you have assets built up beforehand, assets go a long ways with borrowing money. As you can see, my cows do not need any hay today, so that tells me that they are getting fed a great plenty. And this is a little bit of waste from a couple days ago. And these bales here are like CRP type hay. There's a lot of weeds and stuff in there. That I got it for free. I just had to do the work to get it, you know, cut it, rake, and bale it. But that's what I would do. I would try to build assets right now while you can, before you get to the stage where you're going to be borrowing money or talking to a bank, because assets and past history goes a long ways with borrowing money. I know a lot of people who can't get a loan from the bank to save their soul, and a lot of it's they have nothing to show for it. So that would be my advice. And you know, like I say, my biggest regret was selling those animals to buy a vehicle to go out and have fun and party with. I could have got by with a lot cheaper vehicle, and not sold those animals. So, and then, you know, in more recent times, buying the 6400 probably wasn't the greatest decision, but I was promised a job that never materialized, and had I done that job, the tractor would have been paid for and the round baler would have been paid for that year. But I am still making payments on them. I was let down on that. I held up my end of the bargain, but they did not hold up on theirs, so I am still paying for that decision. I had sold my 4030, my 4030 to get the 6400, which you know, I sold the 4030 for half of what I bought the 6400 for, but I got rid of my Vermeer 604K round baler and upgraded to this New Holland 648, and I had to pay plenty of money to boot to get it. So by the time you finance the round baler, which, you know, I've had him now for 4 years, back then he was still pretty new, and balers has paid decent money for it. So that's why I say try to get as far as you can ahead before you get into it, because making payments suck. I have a lot of people tell me what I should do to farther or better my current position in farming, which everybody, you know, everybody's suggestions hold a valuable point or valuable reasoning, but I have my reasons why I don't. As of right now, I am just scratching by. If the corn would have done better this year, that would have made a huge difference. But I can't say that any decision I made was a right or wrong decision for what happened with the corn this year, because everybody around here had the same issue. So if corn would have grown like it did last year, I'd be sitting a lot better than I am right now. And sure, I could go finance money or borrow money to finance more cows to build the herd, but there you're sitting on another note that you got to make a payment on eventually, and I just don't want to borrow any more money. Right now I have a lot of time on my hands because there's not a whole lot going on, which sucks. But in my situation, for me to go find another job, it's really hard because I have a little one in my life that I have to take care of. So if in my situation, I would have to find somebody to take care of her morning and night, whatever else, for me to have a job too. And when you pencil it all out, it doesn't pencil out to pay somebody to take care of her with what I could go walk into a normal job right now, let alone wear and tear on vehicles and all those expenses, especially considering what I have going on at home and how much I make here. If it were a couple, years ago when I didn't have animals to sell or liquid assets or whatever, or some money in the bank, then there'd be no option. I'd have to go work. But financially right now, when you do all the numbers, it doesn't really make sense for me to go get a job, especially being my wife works. If her job was a little bit different, there's variables with that too. But in the beginning, we both worked, and there was a period of time when we worked opposite shifts for quite a while. We saw each other as we were coming and going. That was it. But you gotta do what you gotta do in the beginning. So yeah, that's where I think if you can, like I say, get started now before you're even buying property, you're better off. And if you buy something now and your plans change, you can always turn around and resell. It's not necessarily a waste of money, especially if you find a good deal on something. There's, the right time of the year, you can buy equipment cheap, store it at your parents' place or whatever, and if things fall through and you change your mind, turn around and resell it at a different time of the year when maybe you could turn a profit on it. I actually kind of used to be an equipment jockey. You guys, I'm sure many times hear me talk about back when I had this, back when I had that. I've had 10 choppers or better in my life. And that's because I'll end up buying stuff cheap on an auction, sticking some money into it and some blood, sweat, and tears, and I'll end up using it for a year or two and turn around and sell it. And I made a lot of money buying and selling equipment. But it came with a price too. I mean, you just didn't buy it and then turn around and resell it. I bought it, stuck some time into it, made sure it worked, and then I turned around and resold it. That's not saying that you can't go buy stuff at the right time of the year for cheap, turn around and resell different time of year. In the situation when I was buying stuff, it wasn't buying it at the right time of the year for it to be cheap. I just happened to get lucky. So that's why when you hear, I've had a John Deere 35 chopper, I had a 3950 with Metal Alert, I had the 790, had a 782, had the 718, I've had two 717, Super 717s. I don't remember what else I had. I think that was it for choppers. But I've had a lot of different things. So that's just, you know, hopefully that helps somebody out in the future, you know, with if you could buy now, get started now, so you're already operating by the time you go find a piece of property. I think it's going to be to your advantage. So anyhow, with that being said, I hope you all have a great day. Hope you have a great evening. Hope you find something I said useful. So anyways, we'll catch y'all later. Have a great one.